Welcome, Pewter Report readers and listeners, to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius. I am John Ledyard from pewterreport.com. Along with me today for this wonderful Tuesday edition of the Pewter Report podcast is the one and only, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Matthew Matera. Matt, what is up? How are you, sir? Are you ready to rock this podcast out with me?
Yeah, I'm ready to rock and roll. I feel pretty good. What's up with you, John boy? How you doing?
I'm doing well. Wow, I just did a little New York accent got in there. That caught me by surprise. So I'm doing even better now after that. No, I'm ready for this podcast, man. I'm also ready for preseason action. I love being down at Bucs training camp. I've loved every time I've covered a team or been able to be a part of watching practices, even Senior Bowl, whatever. I love that part of the process. But there comes a time where, like, you've had so much practice and we just need to see a game, man. Like, it's time to watch them against other competition. We're going to get ample opportunity to do that coming up because Saturday the Bucs play the Bengals in Tampa Bay for the first preseason game. Then the week after that, the Titans come to town for some joint practices between the two teams. That should be very, very exciting.
That might even be better than the game, if we're being totally honest. The competition that we'll see with that will probably be even more exciting, which is
And they're a good team. I mean, they're a solid team. Obviously, defensively, they've had their struggles in recent years, but that's a solid football team, and I feel like they've made some moves. Obviously, Julio Jones will be around, and so he'll be a familiar face there for Tampa Bay Bucs players. But no, I'm looking forward to the next couple weeks. I mean, it's going to be just a fun time. We've got today's practice to talk about, though, and lots of observations there, including one absent starter who was just kind of added to the injury routine that we'll talk about today. Some ferocious one-on-ones today that I can't wait to share some inside stories with the fans on today's show as well. It's going to be fun to talk about those one-on-ones that went down today. We also saw good performances by a number of the Bucs skill position players. We'll talk about those, and some of the struggling DBs finally stepped up and made a few plays today. So lots to get to, Matt. I'm sure I forgot some things. And it's all brought to everyone by our friends over at Celsius. I'm drinking the Wildberry, sparkling Wildberry. What do you got?
I got the guava. Sparkling kiwi guava.
Yeah. I have not had that in a while, and seeing you post, you show that reminds me. But for those who don't know, man, Celsius, it's essential energy that powers and active lives every day. It accelerates your metabolism. It burns body fat. There's no sugar in it. There's unbelievable flavor and taste in Celsius, but no sugar. It feels like a cheat code, and it probably is, but Celsius has cracked the code, man, and they figured out how to make these energy drinks not only take out a lot of the bad stuff that's in other energy drinks, but there's no drop-off either. You don't get that drop-off that you get with other energy drinks. So it's unbelievable. And they've also dipped now into the protein bars market as well with fat. They produce fast protein bars. And if you go to the link on this YouTube podcast and you click on the link down there, you can order yourself a box from Amazon, the white chocolate cookies and cream or the caramel peanut crunch. Both are unbelievable. I actually go back and forth between which one I like more, because I'm just so surprised that there's been a protein bar created that tastes actually really good. And they've sustained me through training camp as well. So definitely check out Celsius. Check out that link below, and you can get in on all that stuff, and check out the banner ads on pewterreport.com of Celsius, so you can order yourself some Celsius today. Speaking of Celsius, Matt, it seemed like, well, actually, let's talk about, before we talk about the Energized bunny at today's practice and why that mattered for today's showing. Let's talk about Jordan Whitehead. He left practice early on Monday, and I texted the group chat to kind of, because Scott and I were down at practice, and I texted Scott in the group chat yesterday, and I was just like, hey, did Jordan Whitehead finish practice? I don't remember seeing him there in the last team series, and it's easy to miss stuff, but I didn't remember seeing him. And then it was today, we saw that obviously as we got there that he was out of today's practice. After practice, Bruce Arians wouldn't say why. He said, we'll see. That's all he would say. And so the speculation has officially begun as to what's the story is with Jordan Whitehead.
Yeah, and we were trying to search today. We saw him out. He was out there with his fellow teammates, but he obviously wasn't in pads or anything like that. And you and I were both looking. We were like, oh, like, is there something on his leg? Like, what's going on here? And we realized his pants were just rolled up a little bit, so it wasn't like he was wearing a leg brace or anything like that. It's interesting to see. I mean, he missed a couple days of practice, but that was because of having COVID and everything like that.
Right.
It wasn't necessarily anything from his off-season shoulder surgery. I had to say that slowly because it's a lot of S's right there to really get into the mix. So yeah, when he was coming back, it had nothing really to do with this injury. He obviously rehabbed it in the off-season. I think what is not necessarily scary, but what makes you really want to stay in tune to this is, so with Coach Arians, you kind of get two different sides of things when he answers injuries, because sometimes he'll right away be like, oh yeah, he's got like a bit of a hamstring, or he's got this, and it's like he'll be okay, or he'll be day to day, we'll probably sit him for a week and then he'll come back. But then also to start this training camp, the first day he was like, listen, I'm not answering anything about injuries. And at the time there was like Antonio Brown, OJ Howard, like all these guys that were out. But he was, again, very, as you said, like very secretive and close to the vest with Whitehead, just saying, we'll see. So when you say something like that, it makes you think, like, if he was just coming back tomorrow, Arians would most likely just be like, oh yeah, he's coming back tomorrow. It's the same thing with Levante David, where he's like, yeah, Levante David doesn't need to practice. Like, he's a long-time veteran, we just want to make sure he's healthy for the season. But I think the fact that he didn't reveal any of that information causes some, just a little more.
I completely
let's stay
agree.
in tune. Let's stay in tune with that more than just, oh yeah, like we'll see.
Right. If it's a no big deal, he says it's no big deal. If he believes it's no big deal, he could end up being wrong and the doctors come back and tell him something later. But if at that moment in time he believes it's no big deal, Arians pretty much always acts like it's no big deal and dismisses things real quick. The fact that the only time Arians doesn't say anything is when he knows he's got to keep it like Loki, like he's got to, like there's not an if and or but about it. Like you're not in position to say anything yet, and there's a chance that it could be not great. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I don't know what's going on with Jordan Whitehead. He's having a great camp. I did not see the injury. I'm frustrated with myself that I did not see the injury yesterday. I mean, there's obviously a lot going on. Like I said, I noticed that he was out and that Edwards was in with the first team. I just didn't see what happened. If it happened in 7-on-7 or when it ended up happening, did not see him get banged up. And so we'll see. I mean, he was asked specifically, I think you might have just said this, he's not specifically if it was the shoulder. And
you said, we'll see. Again.
Yeah, he's kind of like, we'll see. So he didn't say it wasn't the shoulder, and again, I think Arians, if it wasn't the shoulder, he would have probably said, no, not the shoulder. We'll just have to see. But maybe, I don't know. All that to say, I don't want to speculate too much because it is a person's health, but we will have our eyes peeled for Jordan Whitehead. I can't believe I'm saying this, but because at the beginning of last year, I kind of said, I think he might be the worst guy in their secondary. And then last year, at some points, he was the best guy in their secondary. I mean, maybe other than Carlton Davis, but he really did play well last year, especially down the stretch. Was great in the postseason, played through injuries, a tough guy. He's not somebody you'd want to be without. Having said that, he doesn't need any of this time in the preseason. So hopefully it's something that at least by the regular season he can come back for. But we did get the vibe today. I think if we got the vibe that it might not be something that we're not going to see him on Saturday, I bet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely not. I mean, I think it came as a bit of a surprise that we're going to see like any of these starters in the game. But obviously that was big news the other day. But yeah, I agree. I mean, Whitehead is an important guy to this defense. He is a player that sets the tone, especially in the run game when he drives up and hits at someone like a heat-seeking missile. I mean, you go back to the NFC Championship game when he forced that fumble on Aaron Jones. Right. I mean, granted, the Bucs already had the lead at halftime, but they came out and they, came out firing again. And it was Whitehead who made like one of those plays. Obviously, people look at like Devin White, but I think you also got to consider Jordan Whitehead as one of those guys that can, at a drop of the hat, can really affect the mood of the defense because of his physical style of play.
The other interesting thing about this, and I don't want to get too far down this path until we know what Whitehead is, so I'll just say for people to kind of be watching for on Saturday, if Whitehead were to miss time, they're really Edwards, Winfield, and Cockrell all more free safeties. And by the way, Tom Bucs fan says, is Cockrell challenging for safety? I don't know if he's challenging for safety or if he's just providing depth at multiple positions, but one of those positions is absolutely free safety. Now, how he would play around the line of scrimmage in the run game as a tackler,
Right.
I mean, he is severely undersized.
We haven't seen as much either,
Right.
just with what they've been asking him to do. And again, training camp tends to be more slanted towards passing plays and pass coverage to begin with. But yeah, I mean, as great as Cockrell has been, and he has been great, like he's been fantastic in this training camp. We've talked about him till we're blue in the face.
Right.
We don't exactly know what to expect from him in run coverage. It's not what he's been asked to do, and understandably so. He's a corner. You're not really corner now moving to safety. You don't normally ask for a corner to be like your number one run stopping guy. It's a little different, obviously, when you're a safety and they could move you.
The fills are different. The amount of aggressiveness coming downhill, but also the space you play in. Nickel, you almost have a gap. At free safety, you're kind of like last line of defense, and you have to fill off a bunch of other players. So there's a processing part of it, an angles part of it, and then the finishing part of it. When you're small, like Cockrell is in the open field, not easy as well. So there's a lot of layers to it. We just need to see more from Cockrell to know. But it brings us down that, okay, will Winfield then kind of switch roles a little bit to play more of what Whitehead did if Whitehead's the guy that's out? And does Edwards and Cockrell kind of handle free safety? Or because I think Winfield's better suited to do what Whitehead does than Edwards or Cockrell are. And those guys can do what Winfield does. So that's how I would play it. But we heard Winfield the other day.
Yeah, you asked him.
Practice. Yeah, I asked him straight up, are you going to play more positions this year? Then he was like, nah, it's probably just going to be free safety. It looks like that'll probably be mostly where I'll be at. Not that he won't ever rotate down and blitz. He will do those. He did one today, actually. He beat Fournette on a blitz off the edge today.
I was about to say, he had a sack today, and we saw it last season as well, that Winfield is very comfortable being up at the line of scrimmage, attacking the quarterback, and being that aggressor that the defense could use from a player back there at safety. So I definitely think you could see more of that. And again, this is all speculation with what's going on with Whitehead, but that's definitely something that we really could see. I mean, I think Winfield was already a guy that I would say is an X factor, only because he could take like a good defense and make it even better versus like just staying as what it was as a good defense. But overall, and I said this before too, with having a guy like Mike Edwards back there, I still feel very confident in the Bucs defense if that's what they have to trot out for, game one of the regular season on opening night. So it's a concern with Whitehead, but I mean, that's why you build depth. That's why you draft these players and cultivate them and have them grow in their career, because the Bucs are still stacked. So let's not panic.
Right. No reason to panic there for sure, but something to definitely keep our eye on. We'll monitor Whitehead. We'll kind of give you all updates as we get him. We'll watch him closely on the sidelines, see what we think might be going on with him as we watch it at camp, even being down there tomorrow. Looking forward to that, to be able to see what we can see. Robert Hainsey missed another practice. That's 6 straight for him. I think at this point, today was a big one to me to like see whether Hainsey will be able to play on Saturday. I don't know that he's out. Maybe could be back tomorrow, and then maybe that's enough for them to play him a little bit. But my guess is he won't play Saturday. And the other part of this that's frustrating is Donnell Stanley also missed practice on Tuesday. And I know that might not seem like a big deal to people right now, but that's your second and third string centers. And it just affects things, because if you get to the game on Saturday and your second snapper, you don't want Brian Jensen to play more than a drive or two, right? So then your next snapper is John Molson, and he's be your fourth string center, and he has to snap the rest of the game. Well, how many snaps did he have on the ground today, Matt? Like at least 3.
I was going to say he had 2 or 3, and
it just kind of ruins everything for the rest of the offense.
Right, and like he had been playing other positions too, and now they threw him into that situation. I was actually thinking it almost reminded me of the beginning of this training camp. Again, at the safety position, with Whitehead being out and Antoine Winfield Jr. had to miss a day, and Raven Green was out. So you were very thin at safety. Now the Bucs are experiencing that on the offensive line with Stanley out. I mean, who knows? Stanley could come back tomorrow. Hainsey, it's obviously been a trend now. He's been out for 6 days, and I don't know. It doesn't look like he's going to be back anytime soon. That could be, for the preseason, that could be a really big deal. I mean, you're talking about Molson, who's only been, this is his second year in the league. He was mostly a practice squad guy, and he was hurt last year too. So this isn't a guy that had, an insane amount of reps at center to begin with. And now you're essentially asking him to play major snaps while protecting Blaine Gabbert, who's going to be your number 2 guy. And obviously he'll probably be in there for like Griffin and guys like that too. But it's a bit of a precarious situation that they're in there, like right up the middle,
Yeah. Right. And it's just preseason, obviously. So we're not like, but for the preseason, you want to see guys on offense get a good look. And like today, how many plays were disrupted because Molson can't snap the ball that well. So that's what I mean. It's just
Yeah.
like, come
Or
on,
even just even just something as simple as a blitz pickup,
Yeah.
moving him over into a different situation. And you'll have the running backs back there too. But, if you have a linebacker coming to the A gap, you got to know your responsibility. Like, okay, if the running back's picking up that guy, who do I got to go to? And the fact that they just threw him in like that, because they had no other choice. It's not like the Bucs would spring this on a guy like that if they didn't have to. Right. But that's a very interesting thing that everyone's got to be watching for the preseason game on Saturday after the Kyle Trask and Joe Tryon show and everything like that.
Right. And we'll obviously keep an eye tomorrow and see if Stanley's back, see if Hainsey's back, and we'll kind of monitor things as we go from there. Tammy wants to know, how is Ryan Succop today? And this is a good question to make sure we address, because Ryan Succop has bounced back the last 2 days. I say that with some trepidation because I fully believe that by basically naming a podcast after his struggles the other day, that was definitely the factor that reverse jinxed him and brought him back to where now, what he 6 of 7, I think, the other day, and today 8 of 8. And then he made a 51-yarder in the team drive period. He made another shorter kick later. I don't think he missed at all at any point today. I mean, he was just dead on with everything he kicked.
Yeah, I think Succop may have heard the noise from this podcast, and Bruce Arians obviously was like, he said it the right way, where he's like, yeah, he's struggling right now, but I'm confident that, he'll get it all ironed out, or whatever he specifically said.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I'm sure Succop probably heard that a little bit. And, but yeah, I mean, he's turned everything around. I know Bucs fans, just brings back a lot of bad memories when it comes to kickers struggling, but Succop changed that last season, and I, for one, am not ready to think that all of a sudden the magic's not there anymore just because he had 1 or 2 bad practices. I mean, he showed it the last 2 days that he's good to go. I mean, he just hit a 51-yarder. Yeah. Granted, it's practice, and it seems like in the season too, the only kicks that Succop misses are the ones that get blocked. So that's not really on him either. Like, I was rewatching the Super Wild Card game against Washington. Yeah, and I almost forgot the Bucs scored their first touchdown, and then Succop's extra point got blocked. Yeah, and that's how they started off the playoffs. So, and then they reminded me because Jamel Dean had the block kick in practice the other day when Succop was kicking. Yeah, so it's funny. That's something that the Bucs definitely do need to clean up, because it was an issue last season, and we saw it here in training camp. So they do have to clean that up. But
Joe Haig was at fault for probably 2 of those blocks last year, and so just by addition by subtraction, with him leaving, obviously. Mark saying, thanks, John. I guess if you come to Tampa back in 2010, it would have saved us a lot of heartache over the years with kickers. No, I just think that, man, I'm real superstitious when it comes to kicking. That's why I hate it when Scott would say good things about Succop on the pod last year, for sure. But we'll watch him. He'll be out in preseason, and Jose B too has done a great job as the other kicker. He's had a great camp, honestly. I don't think there's any competition there, but he's had a great camp, and that's what you want from a guy that's going to be probably on your practice squad. Right.
With the contract that Succop got, they're obviously not going to cut him. But yeah, I agree. I mean, we've seen in the COVID era of football how important it is to have a kicker on your practice squad in case anything happens with that type of situation. So yeah, he's earned his spot. He's going to get a spot on the practice squad roster. So honestly, good for him. And you know what? Who knows? The Saints are down a kicker now, and certainly another team could end up losing a kicker for injury or for whatever reason. So, I mean, this is a tryout, not just to make the Bucs practice squad, but this is a tryout to play for another team, potentially be on the main roster.
Yeah, for sure. This is a good opportunity for Jose B. He'll probably be protected, but. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's a good opportunity for him if he can get to the practice squad to prove himself with the Bucs. But there's that process of being placed on waivers, and so, not waivers, being released, and so there's going to be opportunity for. Oh, it is waivers. I can't even remember now. I always forget the cut rules. It's everybody on waivers after camp, right? Yeah, everybody's on waivers after camp. That's right. Then the rest of the year, it's just
you could take someone from anyone else's practice squad,
right? Until they get protected. If they get through waivers and then get put on the Bucs,
then you can protect like a couple guys. So they would always protect their kicker and a quarterback and a corner or something like that.
Okay, Got it. All right. Sounds good. So Ryan Succop, Jose B also doing well so far in camp. Let's hope the preseason shows more of the same for those guys because I think the Bucs are probably going to need him. Well, at least Succop. Hopefully not Jose B. No offense, Jose B. Hey, speaking of things we all need insurance.
That's
Whether
right.
It's life, homeowners, auto, or even commercial insurance. Briar and Sam Greaves and their staff are the best in the Bay Area and big Bucs fans. It will literally take you 10 minutes to get a quote or compare your current policy, and that 10 minutes could turn into hundreds of dollars in savings. Don't wait. Call Briar Greaves today at 813-876-4166 and find out how much money you can put back in your pocket. 30 years in the business and Bucs season ticket holders. Call Briar or Sam today, 813-876-4166. All you got to do, pick up the phone, give them a call, tell them Pewter Report sent you, see if they can save you some money. If they can, great. If they can't, no harm, no foul. Nothing's wrong. You had a great conversation with some other Bucs fans to see if you could save some money. Not a big deal. So make sure you call Briar and Sam, 813-876-4166 today. Okay, so Ryan Succop's looks like he's bounced back. Praise for that. We'll see how things go in the game. The one-on-ones today between O-line and D-line were a clear indication of quite a few things. One is that Rakeem Nunes-Roches is the biggest trash talker on this team. I don't think it's even close for second place. But moving up toward the leaders in the clubhouse for trash talk, Matt, is becoming Nick Leverett. And I talked to you about this today a little bit on the sideline. I love trying to see what I can glean on the psychology of players, body language, tone, how their gestures in the group settings, how vocal they are, all those kinds of things. I think it's an indicator. I'm a big believer that that's an indication of not only how that comfortable that player feels in their certain role, but also how the other players around them feel about him in this setting. And so watching Nick Leverett in these settings has been pretty impressive. Like, I know he's kind of fighting for the 9th O-line spot, but you could hear Jensen talk about him and Kappa talk about him, and they liked him. They liked him from the moment he came in. They like his demeanor, they like his work ethic, they like his physicality, his competitiveness. Arians praised him today after practice. The way he conducts himself, you can just tell, like he talks trash after every play. He chased Antonio Hamilton like on that outside zone run. He chased him like all the way to the boundary. Like, he just gets after people from start to finish throughout the practice. That's just kind of something that I think the Bucs really value in offensive linemen. Their draft picks have shown that. Their free agency acquisitions have shown that when it comes to Ryan Jensen. He's the kind of vocal energy. And then when you saw in the one-on-ones, it was more of the same. Like in the one-on-ones, it was the same kind of stuff. I mean, he was dominant in every day we've had one-on-ones, really. Like Shaq Barrett, it hasn't mattered who he's gone up against. He's done really, really well. Today, though, he finished off one-on-ones by pancaking Jason Pierre-Paul. And then Pierre-Paul won. Then he leaned over Pierre-Paul while Pierre-Paul was on the ground.
Oh, no. Did he almost do like the Iverson step over of Tyronn Lue?
It was the O-line version of that where he was like trash talking grill to grill in his face. And then honestly, it was kind of like the next JPP was like, of course, I want to run it back. Yeah. And then they kind of like let him break for a second. And then they ran it back and Leverett just took him. And I mean, JPP tried to like outside jab step and cross his face. And Leverett just anticipated it, dude. And just as soon as JPP tried to do it, he just grabbed him and threw him straight on the ground, like straight on his back.
And that's
after dominant reps.
And that's after JPP, I believe he beat you were over there, but he beat a starter, right? Like he either beat Kappa or maybe it was Gents. I don't remember who JPP went up against, but
JPP went up against Kappa twice today and beat him both times. First time I've seen Kappa lose in one-on-ones during this training camp. JPP on the inside is again really tough. The first one, Kappa got a great punch. And JPP kind of slithered by him late. The second one was clean. I mean, he had the rocker step, got Kappa to lean, and then crossed his face. Just not going to face too many guys on the interior as quick as JPP.
Right.
So, yeah, it was I mean, Shaq Barrett tried rush inside. That's not really his game, but Ali Marpet put the clamps on him. Ali Marpet, by the way, we haven't even talked about this guy. I don't think we've mentioned him one time on the podcast. He is just utterly dominant in everything that he does. I mean, one-on-ones. It's not even he doesn't even get moved, dude. Like, not even a question. Golston tries to beat him today, and it's just like nothing. Like, completely shuts him down.
Yeah, Allie had a big play as well early in 11-on-11s. Pretty much the first drill that they did with 11-on-11, it was like strictly a run period for the most part, and then they kind of balanced everything out. So in the run session, like the defense knows what they're looking for, and they pretty much know it's going to be a run play, which is why they got burned on the 2 play action passes that they did. But one of the successful run plays that the Bucs had is they handed off to Giovanni Bernard, and he instantly went out the outside. And Donovan Smith did a great job of like sealing off the edge, so there was that room for Bernard. And Allie also pulled on the play and was pretty much like the convoy for Bernard to get all the way downfield. It was a pretty long game. That's great to hear, though, about Nick Leverett, because, I mean, he's been having really good camp, but the start of today's camp was not the best for him because he was playing over at tackle and went up against Joe Tryon, who
Joe Tryon gave him the work a little bit,
who had a dominant day. But I think that speaks a lot that, okay, yeah, maybe he struggled early on. But the fact that he came back, beat a guy like JPP, who JPP also had an awesome day. He had 2 pass breakups, and he did a kip up. For those who don't know what a kip up is, it's pretty much like when you're lying on the ground.
On your back?
On your back, and you jump up like without using like your hands or anything like that. And you just use your momentum in your body to jump up and land on your feet. A lot of wrestlers do it, most notably Shawn Michaels and Dwayne The Rock Johnson. So you could look up videos of that. You can see that. But for JPP to do it, who's wearing like all football pads and everything too, was insane.
Yeah.
But
I mean, he's a big dude to be doing something like that. But JPP's had a great camp, honestly. He's been way more impressive than Shaq Barrett in camp, to be honest.
Yes.
Again, I'm probably not going to be concerned about Shaq Barrett at all until regular season games start, because I know what I'm getting from the dude. It's not like OJ Howard where like I'm still, even though I've been
coming off an injury.
There's always been some up and down. Anytime he struggles or doesn't stand out, I'm like, all right, here we go. But Shaq Barrett is about as consistent. He just brings it all the time. That's, I'm not saying that there aren't stretches where he faces a guy that he can't beat, and he's got some limitations physically, athletically, obviously, but having said all that, JPP's had a great camp, and he's beaten Donovan Smith a ton in one-on-ones. Smith has done fine in the team periods. I think one-on-ones are never probably going to be his strength. He's never done well, I think, in one-on-ones. So I think JPP's had a great camp, but man, Leverett putting him down a couple times was impressive. The other thing that was really impressive was Aaron Stinney it's always back and forth with him in one-on-ones. He's kind of in that other tier of guys that kind of is competitive, the Leverett tier kind of wells that are competitive. They win some, they lose some, they compete every time. But Stinney, he got kind of embarrassed by Nacho in the first rep, and Nacho's not a pass rusher like at all.
Right.
And Nacho, I think, surprised himself, to be honest with you. He hit like a leaping cross chop, which is a tough move to pull off, and you kind of have to time it perfectly. Otherwise, you could get planted. And Stinney just was not expecting it at all, and he got in clean, like leaping cross, knocked Stinney's hands down, and it was like clean. It was an immediate, impressive highlight reel type win. And Nacho went nuts, dude, screaming like, "Did you get that on film?" Like to the Bucs, "Did you get that on tape?"
They
like,
better.
And of course, the next rep, Stinney's run it back.
Yeah.
And the O-line, like, they start getting riled up when the D-line. The D-line was hooting and hollering, going crazy. Then Stinney comes in, and Stinney just stones him, dude. I mean, Nacho didn't move. He tried to bull rush him, and Nacho didn't move. Stinney just put the absolute clamps on him. Looked like Marpet. I mean, it was just a dominant rep. And then Leverett kind of lost it and like jumped in between Stinney and Nacho, was like all in Nacho's face, and was like, "Did you get that on tape? Did you get that on tape? Like, we got that on tape." And like he was like yelling at him, and it was just a fun exchange. And then Nacho, of course, the coaches are like, "All right, round three, we got to see," because it was dominant both ways, the first two. The second one was a little more of a stalemate. He knocked Stinney back a little bit, but Stinney definitely anchored down and won the rep. And so then Leverett was losing it, and Stinney was losing it, and they were all hyping up Nacho. And so it was good competitive fire, but that's what you need in those practices. If there's a reason Nacho's still on this team, it's because he breeds that type of competitive spirit out of the guys. So I don't know what the ceiling's ever going to be. Oh, I know what the ceiling's never going to be for Nacho. It's not going to be high, but he brings that element to practice. He brings it out of the guys, the best out of everybody, and they need that competitive fire.
Yeah, I think we actually saw a lot of surprise pass rushing today from guys that like you don't really expect to be a top pass rusher. Like I know Khalil Davis was in the mix a lot, and he's only a second-year player, so we're not really.
He had a sack. He had a would-be sack today.
Yeah. So we're still figuring out what type of defensive lineman he can be, but I think going in, he was better at stopping the run before he really, is developing a pass rushing game, which is what he's trying to do now. So it was good to see him in the backfield. Pat O'Connor was in on a play where maybe you could give the sack to him, maybe you could give it to Joe Tryon, but he was definitely like back there on a play. And then he also had a pass breakup of his own. The Bucs defensive line had 3 pass breakups, 2 from JPP and one from Pat O'Connor. So it was good to see guys that you don't normally see in the backfield there making plays, and that's what training camp is all about: is proving yourself when the doubters don't think you can.
Right. And wow, that was really inspirational. That just came out of nowhere. And this is what it's all about right here. Do it when the doubters are. I love it.
Yeah.
That's great stuff. Hey, you know what else is great stuff? Living golf life. I don't know if you noticed this.
Oh, yeah.
You notice this sweet hat I'm donning here?
It's an awesome hat. I love it. The logo's great with the golf ball as the O. I got the Living Golf Life glass right here. They got all of their their social media and everything on the back right there. Yeah. But we're super excited to have Living Golf Life. I'll show the mug one last time. To have Living Golf Life as a sponsor on the Pewter Report podcast. Let me just tell you about them real quick. Living Golf Life is a golf brand, but they're also a lifestyle brand. They're for the everyday golfer. They were founded by Jim Elsett and Mike Bush. They both have
awesome guys who were down at Bucs practice
so
today,
they were at Bucs training camp today, which was awesome because I got there, I'm walking down the sideline, I'm starting to look for like, okay, who's in practice, who's out of practice, and I hear Matt. And I get that from time to time because we have some awesome Pewter Report
because you're a celebrity. It's okay.
So I'm looking around, and I thought I had an idea of like who it was. And then I saw that I'm like, oh, like what's going on? It was great to chat with them. They were super fired up. They were asking us about, certain guys that they should be looking for that maybe not everyone is expecting. So had a great conversation with them. But yeah, they're huge Bucs fans. They come from a military background and being a first responder as well too, which is awesome. And like I said, Living Golf Life is all about just the lifestyle brand of being the everyday golfer. You don't have to be Brooks Koepka or Justin Thomas. The main thing with golf is just being outside with your friends, with your family, swinging, hitting the ball, just having a good time. Whether you have one good shot on the day or maybe you birdie a couple holes and have an awesome time. It doesn't matter what type of caliber player you are. It's just about having fun. Their merchandise is great. I can't wait to get some new swag with some
polos. We'll be rocking
with some new polos that they just came out with. They got polos, they got hats, they got glasses like I just showed you. Koozies. I'm a big koozie guy. Anytime I go out, I'm usually rocking a koozie if I'm having a drink. They got decals as well you could put on your car. So make sure you go to livinggolflife.com. They got all their merchandise there. Go to their Instagram page at Living Golf Life. They're always posting awesome stuff. Make sure you give them a follow because that helps us here at Pewter Report. They're always doing giveaways, caption this, caption that, things like that. And, if you're out on the golf course, Christopher Cole, if you're out on the golf course, make sure you tag them. Living Golf Life. It's a lifestyle brand. Tag us in it.
Right. Even if you're not gonna buy anything, just hit them up when you're playing golf. These guys love to hear from everybody. They love to know people are checking out their stuff and they're out there golfing, honestly. But if you were looking for gifts, you're looking for gifts for yourself to ask for or for other people out on the golf course. They do have some awesome. I love the designs. I love the color scheme. I love it all. So I think it's really good.
If you buy Living Golf Life merch, you show us, tag us at Pewter Report. I'll play a round of golf with you, or we can go to the driving range, whatever. You can ask me all the Bucs questions you want.
Wow, celeb golf outing with Matt Matera.
Living Golf Life. Yeah,
this is huge.
Whatever you guys want.
Wow, this is a big opportunity.
I love golfing. I'm not the best golfer, but I love being out there swinging away, hitting off the tee.
I hope people are going to be able to focus on the golf game out there with you. I mean, big celeb status, getting highs at Bucs training camp, all kinds of stuff. All right, so what else do we need to touch on today during camp? I mean, Antonio Brown's been unbelievable. Like I know we keep saying it every day. I don't know what to say. Has he dropped a pass in training camp? Has he done anything wrong in training camp? one-handed touchdown in the back of the end zone.
That's what I was
going
to say. He had the one-handed touchdown, which was insane. I mean, he's looking like vintage AB. I don't want to say it too loud because
I hope Bucs fans know, like, we're not playing like he.
I know. I'm really not messing. I shouldn't say just me. Like, we're not messing around. And I hate to be repetitive about like AB's looking great and Joe Tryon dominated again. Mm-hmm. But these guys are the ones that are the best players on the field right now. So we can't help but not talk about them when they're the ones showing up every single play.
Right. And we'll tell you when guys are struggling. I mean, Jalen Darden is not that he struggled, but it hasn't been as loud a lot.
He's slowed down. He's cooled off from, the electric start. That doesn't mean that he's not doing well. He's just cooled off a little bit.
Right.
Leonard Fournette. Yeah, Leonard Fournette's been a guy that's been up and down. He had a great play on a wheel route when he went down the field. Brady hit him right in the breadbasket. But then he also missed some blocks in pass protection. And we know how Bruce Arians, that's like a huge thing for him. So I think Leonard Fournette is a guy that's kind of been up and down. Mm-hmm. Shaq Barrett, you mentioned before. Not everyone is like playing perfectly. But.
Again, I like Rob Gronkowski hasn't done like anything in camp. I mean, like, not that he needs to. It's a different story than some of these other guys that, but he hasn't done anything. I mean, like a couple of red zone touchdowns underneath, but he's dropped a few balls, hasn't made any real crazy catches in the last week and a half or so. I mean, I wasn't here for the first week maybe, but it's just been really quiet for him.
He made a nice sideline catch. He made a nice sideline catch, but
yeah, I mean, some guys you're not worried about Vea or Sue or Gronk really, like, or Barrett either, but guys like OJ Howard, Leonard Fournette, when they struggle, like I think that's notable. Like those guys need to be playing better football for sure by the time that the season starts. And so there's still a lot to look out for, and we're trying to be honest about everybody. I think Mike Evans had a better day today, bounce back day. He's somebody that also isn't probably always a practice player. He'll make some highlight reel grabs, he'll drop some passes. We've said it before, but every time that there's any physical interaction in the practice, like, if he gets bumped by a corner, falls down in a route, he gets up and you think he's going on IR. Like, just his body language, my body, like, that's just kind of how Mike Evans is at practice.
And you like freak out for a second, you kind of freeze, like, oh, get up.
Meanwhile, AB doesn't do like anything. He's just like all over the place.
And then he's screaming because he scores a touchdown, and like Chris Godwin's there to celebrate.
Here we go, another rep. Here we go. It's just big difference in their body language. So anyway, but I think that for the most part, honestly, and I'm kind of writing about this in tomorrow's Bucs briefing, I don't think it's been a great training camp for the Bucs tight ends. They have a great tight end room. There's obviously some asterisks in there because Cam Brate is not played. He was back today, but just really an individual period. I don't think he played any in team.
Yeah, essentially.
And so I don't think it's been like a dominant training camp for Bucs tight ends, and I'll explain more about that in Bucs briefing. But one point I'll make today was I did not expect to go into the post-practice media availability and Tanner Hudson catch a stray from Bruce Arians today. I don't even know what prompted it. He did have a nice fade ball catch over Chris Cooper in the end zone.
That I want to bring up real quick because Tanner Hudson, as we all know, is a receiving tight end. I thought he had a solid day as far as a receiver goes. But that was an awesome play. It was in a red zone setting where Kyle Trask was at quarterback, and he hasn't gotten too many reps. But this is a nice play for everyone involved because Trask threw a nice ball to the corner of the end zone. Mm-hmm. It was high, but it was in a spot where, like, Hudson had to make the play because if it was just a regular thrown ball, it would have got knocked away. Hudson jumped up, made the reception, came down with it inbounds. It was an awesome play there. And then also Chris Cooper was the player in coverage there, and he had solid coverage. It was just a really good athletic play by Hudson. So I thought overall, like it was just like a nice football play.
Yeah.
See.
And then after practice, Hudson got absolutely savaged by his head coach. So he was asked about him, and
sorry.
No, it's just like he just has to block somebody. Anybody. He was just like, we've talked about his hands. I know he can catch, but it's not consistent. And then he was asked point blank by Jenna Lane of ESPN whether Tanner Hudson has progressed at all as a blocker over his time as a Buccaneer. And Bruce Arians said he's regressed.
And that was it. It was 2 words. He's regressed. Next question. He didn't say next question, but he was ready to move on.
It was that type of he's regressed.
Yeah, like, and the thing with Hudson is, like, Arians has said this before last season. He's like, he's a good player, he's a good receiver, but he needs to block. Like, that's how he's going to make this
especially
team.
In this offense.
And that's why we saw him on the practice squad for a while before they called him up to the main roster. So for Arians to say like, oh, we need him to block better, doesn't really come as a shock. It's the fact that he said that he's regressed, or the fact that Arians was willing to say that in the public to the media. I think that is more of the shock, to just say, yeah, he's gotten worse. You don't really hear a coach a lot say, yeah, this player, he's gotten worse at this particular trait or skill or whatever you want to call it. You don't see that too much. So that was definitely a red flag there. And it's something like Tanner Hudson has worked on in the past when he's, been spoken to or had an interview here and things like that. It's not anything that Hudson doesn't know about, but the fact that that's the number one thing that Arians wants to focus on, that doesn't bode well when you got other guys like Jarrell Adams and Cody McElroy that are certainly but
they can't block either. You think they're better? I don't know. They don't block either. I feel like maybe Adams a little bit has gotten better, but maybe better than Hudson. Yeah. Maybe Adams has more of a chance than we're giving him then. Preseason is going to be telling. I'm actually kind of writing about this for Bucs Briefing tomorrow too. I'll have 10 key training camp observations so far from the first almost 3 weeks of training camp. I'll have that up to tomorrow at bright and early tomorrow morning on pewterreport.com. But one of the things I'm talking about is offensively. We're going to go into preseason, and there'll be things to watch. And if injuries happen, obviously it could get interesting. But the roster's pretty much set on offense. The decision is 7 wide receivers or 4 tight ends or both. If it's both, okay, then that's a possibility. But yeah, the roster's kind of set on offense. I think if Leverett really has this 9th spot, I wouldn't say he's a lock, but I feel good about it. I feel confident about it. You know what's happening to running back. You know what's happening to quarterback. I think the only question is 7 wide receivers, assuming that's Jaden Mickens is the 7th guy if they keep him. 4 tight ends. Is it Tanner Hudson? It was last year. Will it still be? Will it be Jarrell Adams?
Yeah.
So
I'm not saying it's not going to be Tanner Hudson either. It's
right.
Just when your coach says something like that, it's
for sure, absolutely
concerning.
Right. And so maybe Bruce Arians added a little layer of intrigue to the offensive side of things in terms of roster battles that we'll have to watch for the rest of the preseason. I personally do not think Jarrell Adams has stood out in practices.
You were hyping up Hampton today.
Well, yeah, I was just saying, Daquan Hampton, who is obviously not going to make this team at all. He probably can't block either because he's a converted wideout, and I don't think he's really played. He's never played tight end in an NFL game for sure. He is a really good athlete. He's not just like a testing athlete. Just watching him move and cut, and he's filled out his frame. He has size and athleticism. I don't know. You'd have to know what kind of dude he was and what kind of physicality he has in terms of trench stuff. For this offense, if you can't block as a tight end or don't even want to or don't project to, there's not much point in you staying around, I think. And so, but I don't think it'll be in Tampa, but I would be curious to see what happens with Daquan Hampton because he can move. There's no question about it. I just don't know if he can catch because he hardly ever gets any team reps. we don't see him in team ever because they have like 18 tight ends.
I remember when he did have like one team play. And you're like, hey, Daquan Hampton got a rep.
Ball thrown behind him. He had a chance to make a tough catch. He didn't. So I was like, all right, that's why he's not playing. So.
John, one other backup player that I do want to mention because he had a pretty big day, and this is another corner that goes into the category of he'll make plays, but then he'll also get extremely burned on plays. But as far as making good plays today was Nate Brooks. In 7-on-7, he picked off Tom Brady, which is not easy to do, especially in a 7-on-7 setting. He was guarding Chris Godwin pretty much in the flats and was close. He was on him the whole time. So I was even very surprised that Brady threw the ball, but he threw it his way and Brooks made the interception and took it the other way. Godwin was chasing after him too. So I like to see the effort from Godwin there, just not giving up on the play, even though, obviously Bruce Arians does not want him to tackle someone in training camp. So Brooks made that play. And then later on, he forced a fumble on Travis Johnson after underneath. Travis Johnson, made the catch and then tried to make a move, and he was right there to strip the ball out. And then on the next play, he made a diving pass breakup down the right side of the field. So some good plays by Nate Brooks. I think him And honestly, a lot of the backup guys in the secondary, D. Delaney made a play. Antonio Hampton has been making a lot of plays.
D. Delaney had a third down pass breakup on
clutch
Darden,
play.
Right?
Yeah, a clutch play where he dove and he forced them to kick the field goal, which was the 51-yard field goal that Succop had. But with the backup guys in the secondary, and they're pretty much all fighting for one spot as well, too, maybe two, depending on obviously what they want to do with the roster. But like I said, we've seen guys with really great plays, intercepting the ball, turning the ball over, and we've seen them get beat deep, whether it's by starters or the backup guys too. So the preseason will be fun to watch which type of guys do we get? Like, do we see them get burned in the games too? Yeah. Or is it just because the Bucs are extremely talented at the wide receiver position? Do we see them continue getting these turnovers that we've also seen them make in training camp? We won't know until the games go down, but I think that's a very fun aspect that for these depth guys, again with the defense, it's like who's going to be on the team for the most part, but that's one little spot where these guys can really separate themselves with special teams and making the splash plays in this training camp that I think you got to pay attention to.
There's going to be a lot of splash plays this season for the Bucs, Matt, and if you want a chance to be able to see them up close and personal, especially when this team goes on the road, you got to go to loosecannonstravel.com. Cannon's crew has done some fun stuff, Matt. They've put together travel packages for Bucs fans to go to away games for remarkably low prices and get a full weekend vacation type experience. Look at this. This is for the LA Rams game. Let me take this banner off here so that people can see it even a little bit more clearly. But you get the hotel stay, Friday night party, Saturday night pep rally, Sunday catered tailgate, and a ticket to the game. If you get 4 people to go on this with you, it's $1,050 per person. That is an unbelievable deal.
That's an insane
weekend.
Deal. That
is
so awesome.
They did this. I really don't.
Honestly, I was kind of thinking that too. Like, how are they making money on this?
Yeah,
but like,
I don't know.
It's a sick deal. Like everything pretty much everything is included, right? Except for the flight itself,
right? If you need a flight, some people live in some of these are for. This one's the LA one,
right?
I know
but
some
like
people
Atlanta,
do live in LA, but like New Orleans, Atlanta, these are ones you could drive to. So you get yourself there, and everything else is included in this cost. So I mean, it's pretty unbelievable. Their meals, and these are VIP parties too. We're not talking about going to local bars. These are VIP parties. There's going to be special guests there. They already have confirmations from a bunch of people. That'll be revealed as we get closer to these actual events. But this is the kind of opportunity that they're giving you here to be able to go to these games. Look, if you've ever said, I want to do this. I want to go to a Bucs away game, make a weekend of it, have a great time. Just do it this year, man. There's never going to be a better Bucs team. Like, this is it.
Convince one of your friends to go, and then you're just going with a ton of other Bucs fans too. Right. I mean, the Loose Cannon podcast, those guys, they're all awesome. They have a very fun time hanging out with them. I bet, especially before a important Bucs game, whether it's the Rams or 2 divisional games going on. I mean,
so they've got the Rams game, the Saints game, the Falcons game, all those 3 of those road games. They've got packages for. Go to loosecannonstravel.com. If you go over there and visit that website, you'll be able to look into a little more detail about all of these travel packages. But hey, if you thought about this at all, doing this, you got to do it this season, man. I mean, this could be a special season. We watch this team every day in practice. It could be a special season. So you got to take that chance and try and hit up one of these road games. loosecannonstravel.com. They put together an awesome opportunity for Bucs fans for this season. All right. So to close out this podcast, Matt, let's just preview kind of what we're going to be talking about over the next couple of days. We are going to be talking winners and losers on the podcast tomorrow because training camp will be not over, obviously, but the preseason portion of training camp will be wrapping up. And that's kind of like the most where we've gleaned the most information from training camp. Because next week there'll be the game, and then there'll be a day. There's a couple of days off after tomorrow's practice, and then there'll be game. There'll be another day off, and you come back and you ease back into it, and there's another game. And so the rigorous practices kind of come to a little bit more of a close. They'll probably start seeing more practices with just clothes on, no pads on or anything like that. Unpadded practices. You'll probably see a couple of those make a return next week. So this is kind of, I'm not going to say their observations are done because they're not. There's a lot to observe still, but a lot of it's going to be in the games. You're going to be able to see that with us. So we're going to give you training camp winners and losers tomorrow. And then on Thursday's podcast, we'll talk about players that we are going to have our eyes on. Now, 5 to 10 or whatever, we'll pick between the 2 of us or whoever's on the podcast on Thursday, and we'll pick 5 players kind of that we're looking to watch for Saturday's game that we think need to have some ball out, impressive performances. So that's kind of what you have to look forward to on the show the rest of the week. Do not forget, Saturday at 7:30 is the game. After the game, we've got our press conference availability with Bruce Arians. I don't know if it's going to be on Zoom or not. The NFL doesn't tell us anything until the minute before these things happen. But whatever it is, we're going to do that. And then we jump on the podcast. And so there will be a post-game podcast to break down everything, answer your questions. Do not miss that. And if you have friends that are Bucs fans, tell them. We met some people today down at the stadium. Joe introduced himself to us down at the stadium. Was awesome. Yeah. By the way, if you're a Bucs fan and you're down at these practices, please, during a special teams period or during one of the warm-up periods at the beginning of practices, if you see Matt or myself or Scott or JC somewhere around the side, like, you grab us and say hi and say what's up to us.
Yeah, we love talking to you guys. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, spend a couple minutes chatting, have some great conversation with fans during this training camp, and I want that to continue.
Right. So let us know if you got some observations. Let us know what those are, obviously. But and then so as it pertains to Saturday, spread the word, tell your friends and family. The Pewter Report post-game podcasts are back. You know, if you were a part of those last year, that they were always popping, wins or losses. But the wins and losses don't matter in preseason. The performances do. And so we'll be breaking down all of that, taking all your questions, offering our thoughts and analysis on everything that happens on Saturday. Going to be a fun time. So make sure you stick around for that post-game podcast. Not a set time for it, but it'll be probably about 45 minutes or so after the game ends. We have to get our stories up and our pressers done and all that kind of podcast to kind of wrap things up with y'all. So till tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern, thanks once again so much for listening to another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.
Happy birthday to my best friend, Steve Mahoney. Hope the Mets win tonight when you're at the game.